What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of MUT Tips. I'm your host, Sean Taylor from the Made Up Theater, and let's jump into today's topic, heightening by making it worse. So a brief definition of what heightening is in improv, it's essentially adding information or making specific choices that elevates the characters or elevates the scene or scenario to essentially the peak, where it can no longer rise anymore. And this kind of emulates a narrative structure where stories start kind of down here and the rising action based on the choices of the characters leads it to the climax of the story, which is like, the Death Star exploding. That would be a climax and the overall peak of Star Wars: A New Hope. And we use heightening within improv because it's a great way to practice finding patterns and using yes and as a way to elevate our scenes to just like a memorable status. So the topic of this video is to make it worse, which means essentially that in improv, we don't want to solve problems or fix situations. So an example of this is if you're a character and you can't find your keys in your pocket and you're trying to get in your house, you shouldn't just go over to a nearby rock, lift it, and get the spare key so you can get in, right? That kind of just cuts tension. We set up a nice situation where you have a struggle, and to overcome it immediately, kind of robs it of the potential that it could possibly reach. Like, where could this possibly go now that you can't find your keys? Maybe you're desperate to get inside because you're expecting a phone call from a potential job offer. So that's the problem with fixing things, is it can kind of just sabotage the scene a little bit. So let's look at another example of this. Maybe there's a scene where there's a husband and a wife and they're going to their honeymoon, they're newly married, and they're driving down a long stretch of desert road, maybe to Vegas is their destination, and suddenly they get a flat tire. Now that's the problem of the scene, and you can instantly solve it, but let's try heightening this problem and making it worse. So maybe they go around to the trunk, they open it, and the wife says, "Where's the spare tire at?" And the husband says, "Oh, I had to sell it to get a little extra money so I can get a 3-star hotel." And then suddenly we've played around with this element, and now they don't have a solution yet. And this is, a fun offer too, because now the wife can respond in a certain way. Maybe she's angry, or maybe she's understanding, like, "Oh, you were so sweet, you didn't have to do that." And maybe they treat it as with optimism, like they're still excited to get to Vegas. So they look around for other solutions as well. And maybe they see a gas station nearby, but the gas station's been abandoned and there's no tires there at all. Or maybe they get confronted by a herd of coyotes out there as well. And it's a fun dynamic to actually see their situation get worse. And they can find a solution towards the end of the scene or some type of moment of clarity that kind of brings the scene to a close. But it's fun to heighten it and make things worse because the audience can kind of look at that and empathize. And they're kind of like seeing, oh, where's this scene gonna go? Are they gonna find a solution? And it kind of creates some dramatic tension as well. So making things worse in that particular scene is being established as a type of pattern or a game, something that we can keep coming back to as a way to continue to heighten the scene until it reaches a particular peak or a breaking point. But it's a tool. Heightening is a tool. We shouldn't overuse it. We shouldn't be sending a barrage of different choices and bad things that are characters on stage so the husband and wife aren't actually able to interact with each other. They need to actually be impacted by these bad things and choices. Are these choices gonna make them still optimistic? Are they gonna start to get angry with each other? Are they gonna start to just maybe become more romantic with each other? Who knows? We need to actually see those choices impact them. It's kind of like going back to the game of Duck, Duck, Goose, which I talked about in a previous video of the game of Blind Line, where the duck is the scene, the interaction between the husband and wife, and the goose is the game. In this case, it's the heightening of making things worse. In a scene, we should have natural progression to that goose, where the scene develops the characters with duck, 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 duck. We get to learn about the husband and wife and how they feel, and then goose, punch, something bad happens, and then we have to see the aftermath of that choice. And then we see duck, 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 and then goose, another bad thing. It's kind of a nice way to evolve the scene. And essentially we get to have these bad things happen to the characters that creates a good scene. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of MUT Tips. A little trick that you can do in scenes sometimes to heighten it. Heighten it by making things worse. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to like it down below or comment with a question or something you'd like addressed in a future video, or just a nice comment to say, hey, I enjoyed the video. I love seeing those. Also, subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook for future updates and videos. This video is released every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Thank you so much, everybody. I will see you next week for another episode of MUT Tips. Bye.